With the departure of the Battle Emperor, the shadow that had loomed over the Luo God clan finally dissipated completely. Everyone knew that in this moment, the catastrophe that had once threatened to annihilate the Luo God clan had entirely faded away. As the countless citizens of the Luo God clan cheered, Blood Spirit Sun, along with the powerful members of the Blood God clan, escaped in disgrace, their heads down like strays, fleeing from Luo God City. After leaving the city, they finally slowed down, their spirits low, faces filled with despair. This time, the Blood God clan had mobilized its top forces with the intent to completely destroy the Luo God clan. However, no one had anticipated that what was supposed to be the Luo God clan's demise would turn into a reversal in their favor. It's all because of Chen. That bastard. One of the Blood God clan's warriors fumed. If it hadn't been for Chen's appearance, the Blood God clan would have been the greatest winner today. But now, not only had they lost, their clan had suffered heavy losses. If it weren't for their swift retreat, they would have lost even more. Blood Spirit Sun's face darkened, his clenched teeth revealing his hatred for Chen. He knew all too well that because of Chen, the Blood God clan had lost the perfect opportunity to destroy the Luo God clan, an opportunity that would likely never come again. Luo Tian, who was supposed to succumb to the blood demon poison, had been fully cured thanks to the Flame Emperor's intervention. After a period of rest, he would recover his full strength. What made the Blood God clan even more anxious, however, was the presence of Luo Li and Chen. Luo Li had successfully inherited the Luo God legacy and even cultivated the Luo God divine body, a talent and potential that made others shudder. With Luo Li at the helm, the Luo God clan, once plagued by internal and external strife, would now unite under her leadership. The Luo God clan would become unshakable, and there would be no more opportunities to take advantage of them. And then there was that infuriating Chen. This guy was not only formidable on his own, but also possessed a manner that was more powerful than their Blood God clan. Even more terrifying, he had connections that could summon the Flame Emperor and Martial Ancestor. With his help, no one would dare to provoke the Luo God clan in the Western Heaven realm again. Blood Spirit Sun's eyes glinted with coldness and unwillingness. Finally, he turned his gaze toward Luo God City, his voice icy as he said, "Let this brat enjoy his victory for now. Once he enters the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield, I will make him regret involving himself with the Blood God clan. Let's go." With a flick of his hand, Blood Spirit Sun led his defeated forces in a dejected retreat from the Luo God clan. As the Blood God clan withdrew in disgrace, other forces that had secretly coveted the Luo God clan began to slip away as well. The once opportunistic mindset of watching the battle from the sidelines had now vanished completely. Some of the forces that had previously maintained good relations with the Luo God clan now stepped forward, surrounding Luo Tian and offering their congratulations, their goodwill palpable. Everyone could see clearly that the Luo God clan was bound to rise. Soon, they might even become a major force in the Western Heaven continent. In the sky, Luo Li and Chen exchanged a moment of warmth before descending toward the direction of the royal branch of the Luo God clan. Upon seeing Luo Li's arrival, the members of the Luo God clan's royal branch turned pale with fear. The three Lower Earth Supreme leaders among them immediately knelt, their legs shaking in terror. They knew that their gamble had completely failed. "You colluded with the Blood God clan and sought to overthrow my Luo God clan. Do you still have anything to say?" Luo Li's cold eyes glared at the three Lower Earth Supremes as she spoke coldly. The three leaders of the royal branch lowered their heads in despair. After a moment, they spoke in hoarse voices. "We were foolish, deceived by the Blood God clan. Today, we submit to Luo Emperor's judgment. However, most of the royal branch's people are innocent, and we ask that Luo Emperor spare them." They knew that today's events had sealed their fate. If Luo Li decided to punish them severely, no one would show them sympathy. Not even the people from their royal branch, who would likely resent them. Clang. Luo Li's face remained expressionless. She fixed her gaze on the three men, and with a sharp sound, the Luo God's sword gleamed with a chilling light, pointing directly at their foreheads. The sword's overwhelming energy filled the air, and the three men's despair only deepened. However, just as They were waiting for the sword's edge to fall and erase all hope. They suddenly saw Luo Li flick her jade hand point. 3 beams of light fell into their hands, transforming into 3 silver pills. You were supposed to die, but the cultivation you've reached was built upon countless resources of my Luo God clan. If you were to die like this, wouldn't it be a waste of my clan's resources? Today, your death penalty is pardoned, but the living penalty remains. Take this Luo River poison pill, and from now on, you will atone for your crimes through military merit. Will you accept? Hearing Luo Li's cold voice, the 3 lower earth supremes were stunned for a moment. Then, they quickly knelt down and swallowed the silver pills in their hands, crying out, "Thank you, Luo Emperor. For your mercy, we are willing." They knew the dominance of the Luo River poison pill. Once taken, they would need the antidote provided by Luo Li every year, or the poison would corrode their flesh and blood completely. Thus, in order to survive, they would have to obey any order from Luo Li. But they were more than satisfied with this outcome, as living was better than anything else. Luo Li coldly glanced at the 3 of them. In fact, these 3 should have been killed for their collusion with the Blood God clan, but she restrained her anger. The Luo God clan had barely survived the destruction, yet there were too few super strong individuals. If she killed these 3 now, the only ones who could step into the Earth's supreme realm would be Luo Tianshan, Luo Tianlong, and herself. This number was simply too small. So, for the sake of the future, these 3 could not be killed. However, these people could not be let off lightly, for without rules, it would be detrimental to the development of the Luo God clan. Thus, Luo Li's glass-like eyes once again looked toward the members of the royal family branches. Although today's affair was led by the 3 lower earth supremes, it still revealed the attitude of some members of the royal family branches. As for the royal family branch members, from now on, you will be downgraded to the royal clan. Only those who achieve great merit in the future can return to the royal family. Upon hearing Luo Li's words, the many royal family branch members instantly turned pale. Being downgraded to the royal clan essentially stripped them of their royal identity. This was a fatal blow to them. But in this situation, they could not argue. They could only accept their fate, though countless resentful glances were directed toward the 3 lower earth supremes. They dared not direct their hatred toward Luo Li, who was now at the peak, so they could only resent the 3 old fools who had colluded with the Blood God clan, causing the entire royal family branch to be demoted. The 3 lower earth supremes, aware of the resentment of the clan members, had bitter expressions. They knew that Luo Li's actions had caused them to lose all support among the royal family branch. From now on, they could only cling to Luo Li and obey her every command. In the sky, Luo Tianshan didn't intervene in Luo Li's actions. But in the end, he smiled in satisfaction, for he was very pleased with Luo Li's handling of the situation. TSK, your little lover's methods are truly impressive. Compared to you, the Mu Manor Lord who's just here for show, she's so much better. Mandala mocked as she watched Luo Li quickly pacify the royal family branch. Not only did she recruit the 3 lower earth supremes as her subordinates, but she also sowed division among them and their clan, making them lose their foundation. She then turned to Mu Chun and taunted. Mu Chun awkwardly scratched his nose. He wasn't good at such matters, and, compared to Luo Li's skill, he was naturally lacking. Haha, the Manor Lord is doing great. This is called ruling with an action, said Lu Tiandao and the others, quickly supporting Mu Chun. In truth, they were a little amazed by Luo Li's methods, thinking that if she became their Mu Manor Lord, they would probably have a hard time. As subordinates, the worst thing was encountering a master with exceptional control over them. Mandala glanced at them with a sneer, clearly seeing through their thoughts. Since this matter is settled, I will take them back to the Tianluo continent in 2 days. After all, the Mu Manor is newly established, and with just the ancestor of Myriad Sacred, it may be difficult to handle things, Mandala said. Looking at Mu Chun, Mu Chun nodded. Although he was not particularly skilled at being the leader of a faction, the Mu Manor had been established, and he had to think more about it now. The Mu Manor definitely needed Mandala and the others to return and hold the fort. After all, the situation on the Tianluo continent, in some respects, was even more dangerous than that of the Luo God clan. This was because no true superpower had completed its domination there. As soon as something went wrong, even top-tier forces could be destroyed in an instant, just like the sacred demon palace. "Thank you so much this time," Mu Chen said with a smile. Mandala rolled her eyes at him and said, "You're the Lord of Moon Manor now. We're all your subordinates, so it's only right for us to follow your orders." At this point, Mandala paused and then said, "But you need to be extra cautious if you're going to compete for the title of Continental Heir." She knew that Mu Chen still had hidden cards he hadn't played yet, but he wasn't participating in the Lower Earth Supreme battlefield. He was aiming for the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield. In a place where so many Upper Earth Supremes gathered, standing out and claiming the position of Continental Heir would definitely not be a simple task. "I really don't understand why the Flame Emperor would want to give you a shot at this position." Mandala glanced at the Flame Emperor, who was chatting and laughing with Luo Heavenly God in the distance, and couldn't help but murmur in dissatisfaction. Mu Chen, upon hearing this, smiled and shook his head. He had no complaints about the Flame Emperor's arrangement. In fact, he was filled with gratitude. He knew that the Flame Emperor had allowed him to participate in the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield because he intended to temper him. Every uncut gem needs to be polished before it can shine. Although he had come to Luo Li's side now, this wasn't a reason for him to stop moving forward. After all, his mother was still trapped in the foot of ancient clan. He had indeed grown stronger, but if he wanted to rescue his mother from the foot of ancient clan, his current strength was still far from enough. So he absolutely had to go to the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield. And the Continental Heir position, he had to get it. The turmoil in the Luo God clan gradually settled, but the aftermath of the event spread across the entire Western Heaven continent in a matter of days, causing quite a stir. After all, the appearance of both the Flame Emperor and the War Emperor was enough to shock all factions. The small Western Heaven realm was just a small corner of the Western Heaven continent. The four divine clans occupied this region, and although their foundation wasn't weak, if compared to the vast Western Heaven continent, they could only be considered average. However, no one could have predicted that what seemed like a small conflict in the eyes of some top-tier forces would eventually bring forth the enormous presence of the Flame Emperor and the War Emperor. It was precisely because of the interest of various top-tier forces that the events were investigated thoroughly. The result of the investigation left the many top forces on the Western Heaven continent in disbelief. The source of all this turmoil turned out to be a young man who was only a Lower Earth Supreme. But this Mu Chen, though only a Lower Earth Supreme, had stunned everyone. Within Mu Manor, not only were there several Lower Earth Supremes, but there was even a Supreme-level Earth Supreme with perfected Earth Supreme cultivation. Perfected Earth Supreme, such a powerful figure, in the Western Heaven continent, would be second only to the Western Heaven War Emperor, and could easily dominate a region, earning respect and admiration from all. Yet, this figure willingly served under Mu Chen as part of Mu Manor. This strange situation not only puzzled the powerful forces of the Western Heaven continent, but it also added an air of mystery to Mu Chen. After all, how could a Lower Earth Supreme recruit a perfected Earth Supreme? Such a person must be extraordinary. Just as the top forces of the Western Heaven continent were growing increasingly curious about Mu Chen's mystery, a piece of news came from the Western Heaven Battle Hall, immediately causing a huge uproar across the continent. The message, issued personally by the War Emperor, declared that Mu Chen would participate in this year's Continental Heir competition, and he would be fighting in the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield. As soon as this news broke, the entire Western Heaven continent erupted in excitement. Many super-strong figures initially expressed dissatisfaction that an outsider like Mu Chen could enter their Western Heaven continent's competition for Continental Heir, but soon after, their anger turned into fierce indignation. You, an outsider, might have gotten lucky once, but now you actually dare to challenge the powerful figures of the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield with the strength of a Lower Earth Supreme. Do you really think of yourself as having 3 heads and 6 arms? Completely disregarding the Upper Earth Supreme figures of our Western Heaven continent? Countless Upper Earth Supreme experts laughed angrily at this. Although Mu Chen did indeed show incredible strength in the battle with the Luo God clan, such power, if within the Lower Earth Supreme level, would definitely place him at the top. But none of this qualifies him to challenge the Upper Earth Supreme, in the three realms of Earth Supreme. Each level represents a massive gap. For example, in the Northern Domain, Mandala was the first to step into the Upper Earth Supreme level. Not only did she destroy the Divine Hall, but she also forced the Northern Domains, Xiantian Palace and Netherworld Palace to form the Northern Realm Alliance. All of this was done through the overwhelming power of an Upper Earth Supreme. From this, the strength of an Upper Earth Supreme is evident. Yet now, Chen, with the strength of a Lower Earth Supreme, wants to take from the Upper Earth Supremes of Western Heaven Continent, to others. This seems like an outright disrespect for the Upper Earth Supremes of Western Heaven. At this moment, many Upper Earth Supreme experts were secretly fuming, thinking that if they were to encounter this arrogant kid on the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield, they would make him regret ever stepping foot into their Western Heaven Continent. When this news spreads, I don't know how many Upper Earth Supremes will keep you in mind. In the Luo God Palace, Luo Li, after hearing the news, couldn't help but worry and looked at Chen, helplessly saying. Chen, upon hearing this, smiled indifferently. The continental air spot was already extremely rare, and such actions of taking someone else's food would definitely provoke many enemies. This was unavoidable. What worried him more was that the information passed on by the Battle Emperor subtly hinted at some dissatisfaction with him, and he feared that many would try to make his life difficult in order to please the Battle Emperor. Clearly, the Western Battle Emperor had done this on purpose. After all, with his status, it wasn't easy for him to act against Chen directly, but by subtly leaking some words, countless others would step in to do his bidding. Overall, the Continental Air contest was bound to be difficult. The Western Battle Emperor really isn't being fair. Luo Tianlong, who had been with Chen recently, couldn't help but say. Having spent some time with Chen, he was quite pleased with him, and considering the relationship between Chen and Luo Li, Chen was practically one of their own. Naturally, he would take Chen's side. Looking at Chen, he continued, I don't think it's possible. Maybe you should just give up. He wasn't underestimating Chen. He believed that if Chen participated in the Lower Earth Supreme contest, he would definitely secure a spot. But now, that was the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield. Trying to take that single spot from the many Upper Earth Supremes of Western Heaven Continent seemed nearly impossible. That Chen shook his head with a smile. Senior Flame Emperor had gone through great lengths to help him acquire this qualification, and there was no way he would give up. You're really a stubborn kid. Luo Tianlong glared at him, then looked at Luo Li. Aren't you going to stop him? The entire Upper Earth Supreme faction in Western Heaven Continent is probably waiting to deal with him. Luo Li, hearing this, also smiled lightly. Then with a flick of her delicate hand, a jade slip appeared and was handed to Chen. This contains all the information about the Upper Earth Supremes in Western Heaven Continent and the territories under the Western Heaven Battle Hall. If you want to participate in the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield, this information is indispensable. Chen was overjoyed. While he was not afraid of the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield, he wasn't arrogant either, and this intelligence was of immense importance to him. When Luo Tianlong saw that Luo Li wasn't dissuading Chen, but instead secretly helping him gather all the information, he couldn't help but blow on his beard in frustration. Luo Tianxin smiled and shook his head. Let the young ones figure it out themselves. He was quite open-minded, knowing that Chen was not reckless by nature. Since he had decided to participate in the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield, there must be something he was confident about. Though sometimes even Luo Tianxin found it hard to believe that a Lower Earth Supreme could stand up to an Upper Earth Supreme, given the past experiences, he ultimately decided to trust Chen a bit more. Hearing the teasing from the elders, Luo Li also flashed a smile at Chen, her stunning beauty making his heart skip a beat that he stared at her intently, which made Luo Li blush slightly and roll her eyes at him before she softly spoke. The number of Upper Earth Supremes in Western Heaven Continent and its neighboring territories under the Western Heaven Battle Hall is considerable, but there are three you must pay extra attention to. Oh, hearing this, Chen's gaze grew serious. Who are they? Lord of the Star Pavilion, Lu Xingchen. Langius Sword Immortal, Su Mu. Overlord Blade, Chu Men. When Chen heard the names of these three individuals, Even Luo Tianxun's expression grew slightly grave as he nodded. These three have enormous reputations in Western Heaven Continent. They all have one thing in common. They've defeated many opponents of the same level. Although I've recovered now, if I were to encounter any of these three, I could only protect myself. So, these three will be the top contenders in the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield. Willow Star, Su Mu Chu Min. Mu Chan murmured to himself, his expression becoming more solemn. If even Luo Heavenly God acknowledged their power, then these three must indeed possess extraordinary abilities. However, although these three can be considered popular contenders, they are not the true seed-level figures. As Mu Chun placed these three on his danger list, Luo Li once again spoke astonishingly, causing Mu Chen's eyes to narrow sharply. These three were such formidable opponents, yet they weren't even considered seed-level? Luo Heavenly God sighed and said, although Willow Star and the others are not simple, they still fall short when compared to those born with extraordinary talents. Extraordinary talents. Mu Chen paused, keenly grasping the key point. Luo Li gently nodded and said, in the Western Heaven Battle Hall, there are 4 holy sons. The first holy son, Spirit Warrior. The second holy son, Spirit Sword Son. The third holy son, Spirit Dragon. And the fourth holy son, Spirit Consort. The first 3 holy sons will all participate in the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield. They were painstakingly cultivated by the Western Battle Emperor with the purpose of competing for the title of Continental Heir in this event. These 3 holy sons are renowned across the Western Heaven Continent, and they share one common trait. At this point, Luo Li couldn't help but pause, her face slightly changing. Noticing Luo Li's reaction, Mu Chun narrowed his eyes and asked, what is that common trait? Luo Li exchanged a glance with Luo Heavenly God before softly replying. They have all killed true Upper Earth Supremes. Killed Upper Earth Supremes. Upon hearing this, Mu Chen couldn't help but shudder, and his demeanor grew even more serious. It was then that he fully understood the immense difficulty involved in becoming the continental heir of the Western Heaven Continent, the back mountain of Luo God Palace. Atop a quiet peak, Mu Chen sat cross-legged on a piece of blue stone. The mountain wind blew, causing his robe to flutter, giving him a somewhat handsome and carefree air. He closed his eyes slightly, forming hand seals, as the overwhelming spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged toward him like torrents. And no matter how immense this spiritual energy might be, once it touched Mu Chen's body, it seemed to fall into an endless abyss, causing no ripple whatsoever. Having reached the Earth Supreme level, Mu Chen's body could now contain an unimaginable amount of spiritual energy. Before reaching Earth Supreme, everyone could only rely on a Supreme Sea to store spiritual energy, but once they entered the Earth Supreme level, the Supreme Sea dissolved into their flesh. Every part of their body became a Supreme Sea, allowing for an absorption capacity many times greater than before. Yu Chen's cultivation lasted for an entire hour, and the astounding energy gradually subsided. His tightly shut eyes slowly opened, and within them, spiritual light flickered before gradually retreating. Feeling the vast spiritual energy flowing through his body, Mu Chun let out a soft breath, but his expression remained grave. He once again recalled the information Luo Li had shared earlier. The 4 holy sons of the Western Heaven Battle Hall, Mu Chun murmured to himself. According to Luo Li, the first 3 holy sons had all achieved the remarkable feat of slaying Upper Earth Supremes. This was something that could not be underestimated, and Mu Chen knew very well the immense difference between killing and merely defeating an Upper Earth Supreme. The vitality of an Upper Earth Supreme was so resilient that even if their body was mostly destroyed, they could still recover. Truly kill an Upper Earth Supreme. One must eradicate the life force contained within their flesh and blood, just as Mu Chen had done when he killed the Lower Earth Supreme from the Blood God clan. However, achieving this was clearly no simple task. At such a level, even if one was unable to win, it was always possible to escape with their life unless there was a massive disparity in strength between the combatants. Since the 3 holy sons of the Western Heaven Battle Hall had managed to kill Upper Earth Supremes, it meant that their true strength far surpassed that of ordinary Upper Earth Supremes. These 3 holy sons would undoubtedly be formidable obstacles in the competition for continental heir. Furthermore, The most crucial point was that the Western Battle Emperor held a deep grudge against him. Although he dared not take direct action due to the presence of the Flame Emperor, if these three holy sons encountered him, they would certainly help the Western Battle Emperor vent his anger. So, between Mu Chun and the three holy sons, there was no room for compromise. Compared to them, however, Lu Xingchen, Langya Sword Immortal, and Overlord Blade were slightly weaker. Though all three had impressive records of defeating opponents at the same level, their achievements still fell short of the Holy Sons. This Western Heaven continent truly is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers, Mu Chen sighed. While the Western Heaven continent was not considered a supercontinent, the presence of the Western Battle Emperor made it far stronger than Tianluo continent. This time, if he wanted to claim the title of the continental heir, a fierce battle was inevitable. With this understanding, a sense of pressure settled in Mu Chen's heart. Still, his resolve remained unwavering. This opportunity had been secured for him by the Flame Emperor, and no matter what, he could not afford to give it up so easily. Exhaling deeply, Mu Chen lowered his gaze and formed a seal with his hands. The space around him rippled, and he could sense the presence of his two avatars, still cultivating within the heavenly river of the ancient heavenly palace. Feeling that strange yet reassuring connection, a sense of calm settled over him. The three holy sons were indeed formidable, but Mu Chun was no pushover either. And this One Chi transforms three purities technique was one of his trump cards against Upper Earth Supremes. Though he had never used it in battle since mastering it, he had a strong premonition that its power would not disappoint him. Even so, having such a supreme technique as a trump card did not make him complacent. To be absolutely certain of victory, he needed more strategies, more cards up his sleeve, more techniques. Mu Chen's eyes flickered with contemplation as he closed them briefly. After a moment, he opened them again, hesitation flashing in his gaze. He had recalled a technique he had long set aside. It was the Great Pagoda art, left to him by his mother. The Great Pagoda art was the foundational cultivation method of the Futu ancient clan, profound and unfathomable. Mu Chen had practiced it for a time in the past, but fearing exposure, he had set it aside. Now, having stepped into the Earth Supreme realm, he finally possessed some means of protecting himself. Perhaps it was time to resume its cultivation. The Futu ancient clan was one of the oldest and most terrifying forces in the Great Thousand Worlds, a true colossus. If the Great Pagoda art was their core inheritance, then it was certainly no ordinary technique. In the past, his strength had simply been too weak to comprehend its deeper mysteries. But now, Mu Chun believed his understanding of it would be vastly different. At this thought, he hesitated no longer. Forming seals with his hands, he closed his eyes. The mental incantation of the Great Pagoda art flowed through his mind, and the vast spiritual energy within him began circulating along the technique's meridian pathways. Buzz. As the Great Pagoda art activated, a surge of boundless spiritual energy roared through his body like a tidal wave. Amidst this swirling energy, a long-dormant black pagoda slowly took form within him. The incantation of the Great Pagoda art echoed in his mind as his consciousness gradually submerged into it. Mu Chen's premonition had been correct. Now that he had stepped into the Earth's supreme realm, the previously cryptic aspects of the Great Pagoda art became startlingly clear. Concepts that had once been impenetrable now unraveled with ease, as though he were peeling back the layers of a profound mystery. It felt like he was lifting the veil on an ancient and esoteric art, revealing its deepest truths. Unconsciously, he became wholly immersed. On the mountaintop where he sat, the sun and moon cycled through their phases, days passing in the blink of an eye. Mu Chen's figure remained motionless, as still as a stone. Luo Li arrived at the mountain, but seeing Mu Chun in deep cultivation, she did not disturb him. Instead, she simply sat beside him in silent companionship for a long while before quietly leaving. Time flowed on, and in the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. On the 10th day, Mu Chen's body suddenly trembled. Deep within his consciousness, the mental incantation of the Great Pagoda art abruptly split apart, and a new, unfamiliar verse emerged within his mind. Destruction begets rebirth, the heart is the path. Draw upon ancestral chi, and only then shall the pagoda be true. Mu Chen murmured the words to himself, and after a long moment, a surge of enlightenment washed over him. So, this is the truth? Mu Chen murmured to himself, and with a single thought, the black pagoda within him suddenly began to collapse, its body shattered, sending beams of radiant light bursting forth. He had forcibly destroyed the pagoda. The pagoda continued to crumble until it finally exploded completely. In an instant, deep, eerie light swept outward, illuminating every corner of Mu Chen's being. Let the heart pave the path. The heart mantra flowed within him as Mu Chen let go of his mental essence, allowing the endless eerie light to wash over him. His consciousness gradually blurred, and in this near-transcendent state, at the very place where the pagoda had shattered, the eerie light coalesced into a small vortex leading to an unknown destination. Staring at the eerie vortex, Mu Chen hesitated for a moment, but he quickly cast aside his doubts, allowing his consciousness to drift forward before plunging into the vortex. The darkness before him lasted only for an instant. Yet, in that fleeting moment, Mu Chen felt space and time distort, as if his consciousness had traversed an unfathomable distance. The darkness swiftly receded, and when Mu Chen's consciousness opened its somewhat hazy eyes, a violent tremor rippled through him that a stunned whisper escaped from his mind. Where is this? His consciousness floated in the sky, gazing upon a vast and ancient world. Time had left its marks upon this land, its essence weathered and mottled. However, what truly shocked Mu Chen was not the antiquity of this place, but the towering structure at its center, a pagoda of incomprehensible scale, standing in absolute silence. This pagoda was beyond ancient. Every imprint upon its surface exuded an unfathomable profundity, as if it transcended time itself, eternally existing beyond the reach of the ages. Mu Chen's consciousness fixated on the towering pagoda, and the aura it emanated carried an ancient pressure, one that felt even more overwhelming than that of a heavenly supreme. What is this place? Mu Chen was shaken to his core. He had no idea why the destruction of the pagoda had led to the formation of this passage, drawing his consciousness into this unknown realm. That very moment, far away in the depths of the Futo ancient clan, within a shadowy tower, a lone figure sat in silent meditation. Suddenly, she opened her eyes, her gaze, usually as still as an ancient well, welled with tears. Lifting her head, she gazed at a point in the void, her eyes filled with deep relief and longing. Mu Chen, my child, have you finally reached the point where you can enter the ancestral land? Drifting through this ancient and silent world, Mu Chen gradually calmed down from his initial shock, piecing together the truth behind his arrival. His deeper comprehension of the great pagoda art, coupled with the destructive force of the pagoda, had likely led him here, a place that seemed intimately connected to the Futo ancient clan. The great pagoda art was always extraordinary, yet for an Earth Supreme, it remained somewhat ordinary. However, for it to be the foundation of the Futo ancient clan, there must be more to it. It requires deeper enlightenment and evolution. That so-called evolution was likely linked to this ancient world, or more precisely, to the colossal pagoda at its center. With this thought, Mu Chen's consciousness turned toward the massive, time-worn pagoda. He hesitated briefly before cautiously guiding his consciousness closer. As he approached, his breath hitched in astonishment. Only now did he realize the sheer immensity of the pagoda. Towering to heights of hundreds of thousands of feet, standing beneath it, he felt as insignificant as an ant. The sheer visual impact was overwhelming. What a terrifying pagoda! Mu Chen couldn't help but murmur in awe. He could faintly sense the pressure radiating from the pagoda, an aura that surpassed even the Western battle emperor. This pressure was ancient and boundless, infused with the weight of countless years. In a way, it was far more oppressive than even the mightiest ruler of the Western heaven continent. In Mu Chen's understanding, the only presences that could compare to the oppressive might of this ancient pagoda were the Flame Emperor, whose depths were as unfathomable as an abyssal ocean, and the martial ancestor, whose indomitable presence seemed capable of withstanding the collapse of heaven and earth without wavering. This moment, Mu Chen truly grasped the terrifying heritage of the most ancient races within the Great Thousand Worlds. Buzz, buzz. Just as Mu Chen was in awe of the ancient pagoda, it seemed to detect the presence of his mind that a faint humming sound resonated from within. The sudden reaction startled Mu Chen, nearly making him withdraw his consciousness. This mysterious pagoda was far too formidable. If it reacted aggressively, he would face unimaginable disaster. A dim glow emanated from the ancient pagoda, enveloping Mu Chen's consciousness entirely. In that instant, he sensed a mystical ripple sweeping over his mind. He even had the illusion that the glow pierced through the vastness of space, scanning every detail of his physical body, which remained seated in meditation at the rear mountain of Luo God Palace. The sensation sent a shudder through Mu Chen's heart. A single misstep, and this scan might bring forth an annihilating catastrophe, erasing not just his consciousness, but his physical form as well. Fortunately, after completing its scan, the dim glow gradually receded. In that moment, Mu Chen vaguely felt a newfound resonance, an acceptance between himself and this ancient land. This left him momentarily stunned. Then, realization dawned. This scan had likely been the pagoda's method of verifying something. Its true purpose, to identify the bloodline of the Futo ancient clan, and if the intruder did not possess this bloodline, the terrifying pagoda would undoubtedly eliminate them. Thankfully, Mu Chen's mother was a direct descendant of the Futo ancient clan, which meant that the power of their lineage flowed within him. That was close. Mu Chen wiped the cold sweat from his heart. Had he failed the test, his fate would have been dire. As he calmed himself, an eruption of endless energy gushed from the pagoda's peak, cascading down like a waterfall, completely enshrouding his consciousness. These mysterious currents carried an aura as ancient as time itself. Bathed in this energy, Mu Chen felt a profound sense of familiarity, an undeniable connection, as though they shared the same origin. Is this ancestral qi? In that instant, Mu Chen understood. This must be the ancestral qi described in the Great Pagoda Art's heart mantra. Only by channeling ancestral qi can the pagoda be truly realized. As the mantra echoed within his mind, Mu Chen swiftly formed seals with his hands. A brilliant radiance erupted from his body as he devoured the flowing ancestral qi like a whale swallowing the sea. As the qi poured into him, Mu Chen could feel his very being tremble, his blood boiling, surging wildly through his veins. In its depths, a dormant power began to stir. Buzz, buzz. Mu Chen's consciousness burst forth with boundless dark radiance, forming a vortex-like abyss that frantically absorbed the ancestral qi emanating from the ancient pagoda. As this relentless absorption continued, something remarkable occurred within the abyss. Slowly, a pagoda over 10 feet tall began to take shape. Unlike the ones Mu Chen had formed in the past, this pagoda was an unusual milky white. As more ancestral qi flooded in, the whiteness began to fade, becoming increasingly translucent, as though all impurities were being purged. Whoosh! As the white pagoda of transcendence materialized, Mu Chen failed to notice a drastic transformation taking place within his physical body in the rear mountain of Luo God Palace. His blood boiled violently before suddenly igniting into dark flames, engulfing his entire form. This was the power of the Futo ancient clan's bloodline being fully awakened. Sizzle! At the same time, the white pagoda of transcendence hovering in the ancient land also became wreathed in dark flames. As the fire burned, the pagoda grew ever more crystalline, gleaming with an otherworldly purity. Mu Chen's mental focus remained on everything happening before him. Although he was somewhat unfamiliar with the white pagoda of transcendence, his intuition told him that the more crystal clear this pagoda became, the greater the benefits it would bring him. With this thought in mind, Mu Chen hesitated no longer. He completely released his mental focus and activated the dark flames to refine the pagoda. While further increasing the frantic absorption of ancestral qi, he had also noticed that the main material for refining the white pagoda of transcendence was the mysterious ancestral qi. As the ancient pagoda was drawn in, it continuously emitted precious ancestral qi, helping Mu Chen refine his white pagoda of transcendence. Under the influence of the dark flames and the endless flow of ancestral qi, The clarity and purity of the white pagoda of transcendence increased at this rate. It wouldn't be long before the pagoda would be completely purified, burning away all impurities. Foot to ancient clan. On the stone platform above the ancient altar, two elderly figures sat silently. Their bodies were shriveled, exuding an aura of ancient decay. However, as they breathed, the space around them shattered into fragments, revealing how terrifying these seemingly decayed elderly figures truly were. Their eyes remained tightly closed, as if they were in a deep slumber. But at a certain moment, it seemed as though the two felt something. They suddenly opened their deep, dark eyes, their faces showing a trace of confusion. In that instant, they sensed an unusual fluctuation from the ancestral land. What is going on? The two elderly figures exchanged glances before waving their sleeves. A spiritual light gathered before them, forming into a spirit light mirror. Within the mirror, light flickered, revealing the ancient world. The mirror flickered once more, then focused on the ancient and massive pagoda of transcendence. As the two elders glanced over, they immediately noticed the white pagoda of transcendence outside the ancient pagoda, which was as crystal clear as if it were made of crystal. Seeing this clear, almost sacred pagoda, the two elders were stunned, then exclaimed in shock, This is the sacred pagoda of transcendence? When did our clan have a member who could refine such a pagoda? Truly extraordinary. As soon as the words left their mouths, it seemed as if they suddenly remembered something, and their ancient faces changed dramatically. They remembered that they were the guardians of the ancestral land. Any clan member who wished to enter the ancestral land to gather ancestral chi and refine the true pagoda of transcendence had to pass through them first. But now, they clearly hadn't opened the ancestral land. How had that person entered? Faced with this situation, even with their calmness, their expressions changed dramatically. They shouted in unison, Quick, open the ancestral land. In the ancient world, Mu Chen's mental focus was immersed in the crystal-clear pagoda of transcendence. As the dark flames continued to refine it, and the ancestral chi poured in endlessly, the pagoda gradually became perfect. It now presented a crystal-like color, transparent and gleaming, exuding an indescribable, mysterious aura. Mu Chen had an intuition that this crystal pagoda of transcendence was extraordinary. It was certainly unlike any other pagoda he had refined before. Just as Mu Chen was delighted by the mysterious crystal pagoda of transcendence, a fierce storm suddenly erupted in the ancient world. Then, Mu Chen saw the space in the distance crack open, and a dry, eagle claw-like hand stretched through, covering the sky and blocking the sun. It reached directly for the space he occupied. At the same time, a furious voice echoed throughout the world. Who dares to trespass into my Futo ancient clan's ancestral land and steal ancestral chi?